Hey, welcome to the Minds Podcast Reincarnated. Sorry for the break, everybody. We have been just heads down, but we're getting back in the flow and we're going to keep it going through the rest of the year. So we have Keri Smith here today, who is hosting our upcoming event at the Vulcan in Austin on April 15th, Minds Fest. Welcome, Keri.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for coming to Texas with your next event. I'm so excited. I don't have to travel and everybody gets to come to my beautiful state. So
Yeah,
Hey, I mean, there's lots attracting many people to Texas for a
yeah,
variety of reasons. So yeah, we're
yeah,
psyched. I mean, there's Bitcoin laws getting passed there. You know, people care about their constitutional rights there. So these are the kinds of things that
good
we and
barbecue, good dancing, good fashion.
yeah, yeah. It's super hot right now. It's expensive flying there though. Oh my God.
Uh,
It's very, very expensive flying into Austin. But yeah, it's like super hot right now, that's for sure.
cool. So Sean, you want to maybe just take people through the lineup and see
Yeah.
what Keri
So
thinks?
yeah, so Keri, so we made a little changes since the last time we talked. So it is like Bill said, it's gonna be on April 15th, doors at 5 p.m. And we're gonna go to 1:30 a.m. But so we're gonna have the panels up front, kind of like we've done in the past, kind of like we've done with New York, Keri. So obviously you'll come out, you'll introduce the show, and kind of introduce people as they're coming to the stage. So the first panel we're calling it Changing Minds, and Destiny's on it with Chris Williamson, Matthew Azraeli from Bass Records, Peter Boghossian, Daryl Davis, and we're going to do something a little different. We're actually going to give people in the audience an opportunity to come on stage. So we ran a raffle of the Minds community members, and we have a couple people that have won the contest, so they can join the stage. And then we're gonna put names in a hat and then pick people that are there to just kind of come on stage, ask a question, and kind of be a part of the discussion.
That's so
So
exciting. That's very
yeah,
different. I love it.
yeah, it's like, a lot of people come because they want to be a part of the discussion. A lot of the stuff that we talk about is being part of the discussion, but now you can actually be on stage and do it. So I'm excited for that. And I don't know, Bill, if you had anything you want to add on that. I don't know, did we lose Bill? Sorry, I can't see the
I think
screen.
he froze for a second.
Oh no.
I love this lineup for the first panel.
Yeah.
Daryl
Oh, sorry.
Davis.
Yeah.
I was just
Go
Daryl.
saying,
ahead.
Daryl
Yeah.
Davis is amazing. I got to meet him at your New York event,
Yeah.
which he's an inspiration for so many people and someone who I think just really walks his talk. And then Peter Boghossian, I'm excited to meet in person. You just have this is a great lineup.
Yeah, and this is kind of like what Peter does on the street, like where he'll talk to people and he'll ask a question and kind of see where people line up. So that's what'll be cool about this is like getting people from the audience, because the positions are nuanced in a lot of this stuff, right? So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the panelists react to. So it's going to be more honest, it's not going to be like we have questions asked already and planned and stuff. They can kind of come up and ask whatever. So yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
cool.
this is a pretty balanced panel too. I mean, you've got Matthew Israeli, who's more conservative. You've got, but everybody else is pretty kind of unlabeled, to be honest. Daryl's more on the left, but very pro free speech. Same with Destiny. I would say myself, Chris, Peter are like kind of in no man's land, which is a good place politically to be. I know, Keri, you're kind of there too.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And Destiny for sure. I actually moderated a panel or two with him at some of the Myth Informed events, and he's someone you cannot put in a box.
Yeah.
And you're not exactly sure where he's going to line up on different issues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, we're going to be pulling a lot of names out of like we want to get a lot of people up to make it spicy, to make it interesting, and to give people a chance to go to head with Steven and others. So I think this is going to be cool, and we're gonna keep the hat on stage for the duration of the event, just so that all the panels can kind of grab at it whenever they want some extra spice on the stage, or it could be someone could be super dull, but that's funny too. So
Yeah, it's kind of like the interesting thing, Keri, I don't know if you've made it down to the Vulcan for a Kill Tony show yet. I don't know if you've made it.
No, my husband watches that show. I haven't, but I've been at the
Yeah.
Vulcan for South by for some of the bands I used to work
Yeah.
with, comedians I used to work with in bands.
Yeah, big name comedians in there. And like that's what Tony does is he gives like new comics a minute on stage to try out material and see if, they're any good. So it's kind
And then they roast them a little bit.
Yeah.
So like I think that there'll be a little bit of that, but it's not like people presenting their art. It's more so people or their comedy. It's, coming up and kind of seeing your skills at debating.
Yeah.
So it's like,
sorry, but it's like the whole Change My Mind series with Crowder and Destiny does a lot of those as well. It's kind of in that spirit. It's like, I think those became a meme for a reason. Like they're so crazy and hilarious.
And Peter's content's really good with that. Like what he's been doing on campuses and in other areas. He asks the question and then he can provide the counter argument and see if he can move some people, which is good. Yeah, it's all about having discussions. And then the second panel where it's how to moderate and decentralize social networks. So really getting into the nuts and bolts on censorship. Like I was thinking about this the other day, Bill, like with the ban on TikTok, I'm assuming that might come up in this. Like, should we be banning TikTok? Like, what side should we be on with that one? Because on one hand, I know how destructive of a force it is, but on the other hand, it's like, anytime the government starts banning something, it makes me very, cautious.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with the Restrict Act, it's a nightmare. I mean, the same act that they're trying to use to ban TikTok, which, makes people happy because it's, Chinese surveillance. It's actually, there's so many hidden violations of our rights in that legislation where, all different kinds of software is, there's going to be fines apparently for running a VPN. So like you could be fined in America for running a VPN to use TikTok, which is just terrifying.
Right. That's essentially what the CCP does, right?
They ban certain VPNs, which is very dark.
All the social media companies are banned in China, including TikTok, right? So
yeah, they actually have their own version of TikTok in China.
Yep.
But that is kind of funny. It's like even TikTok's banned in China. What?
I know.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So like TikTok's banned in China, but they can fine their citizens if they are illegally. Brian Callen was talking about that when he was on set in China, and he had people like assistants or whatever for the movie he was filming that were able to get him on American social media, but they had to have like certain like special devices and they had to like break the firewalls and stuff, which is crazy. But yeah, do we become our own enemy?
It just scares me about the precedent it sets.
Yeah.
Because so many of these things start off with one justification, and then down the road, once we become used to it, then they push it further.
Yeah.
Like with the Patriot Act, like with, being able to look into our bank accounts for any transaction over, what was it, $10,000. People become accustomed to that. And then, 2 decades later, it's like, oh, and now we want to look for anything over $600. I mean, you're already used to it, right? For 10, it's just a slight tweak. And so,
right.
Yeah. And I think
it concerns me.
I think we know where like Ian and Luke are going to land on this. It's going to be interesting to see where Destiny lands on this in this argument, because he is very pro speech, but he's also very pro companies being able to do whatever they want as far as censorship goes. Yeah. And then Libby just joined the panel, which I'm excited for. And Michael Seifert, Bill, what do you think his take's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, he's running Public Square, which is a fast growing business marketplace, like very pro freedom. So he's obviously going to be pro free speech. What's funny is that, you see, I've been talking to a bunch of like more conservative kind of freedom focused brands and who are oftentimes very Christian. And it's just so funny if you think back over the years, like you've got all of these Christians who are standing up for free speech now, when historically, the kind of religious community was much more like pro censorship.
Yep.
But now you're getting all these religious, Christians who are defending free speech more than like atheists. Like atheists are actually calling for censorship, which is just like inverted. It's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Beatles, even, as recent as J.K. Rowling, like J.K. Rowling got canceled by
the Christians.
Yeah, first by the Christians, then by the woke. But yeah, no, the first cancel mob that came after is Christians because of the witchcraft or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, do you think like on the right, do you see like a difference between like MAGA Republicans versus kind of like your more traditional Republicans? Because I would argue there's still some on the right that do advocate for censorship, including
like the neocons kind of still advocate for censorship.
Yeah.
I also think. Go ahead.
No, go.
Well, just the neocons, and you're making me think, Bill, about. See, back in the 80s and 90s, when it was the Christians who were pushing for censorship, I wasn't a Christian, and I don't know if I understood who those people were exactly. I'm starting to wonder if they were just like the loudest Christians, and that it was this sort of censorious, false kind of Christianity that we're seeing things change now. I
Yeah.
think we're seeing things change now, where those people, those kind of Christians in the public eye, are being outed as being, I don't, some of them con artists. Like, look at the mega preachers. It was like the mega preachers and stuff like that. And look at Joel Osteen and all these people in what I would call the Christian community today. At least the people I hang out with, it's like nobody regards those people as faithful shepherds. It's like, so maybe those people had a lot of influence back in the 90s.
It's like, well, yeah, and there definitely was that rise of televangelism. And that was, if you think back to the influence of those shows, it's kind of like what we see with social media now. Like they had huge, impressions and influence on the culture. So yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, what is the one way to get people riled up? It's like through, like something like, oh, John Lennon said they were more popular than Jesus. Oh my God. Like that's
Dungeons and Dragons is.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons. The other one. Yeah, which a lot of people thought people played Dungeons and Dragons were devil worshippers. It's crazy.
All right. So then on the last panel, we're going to be talking Twitter files. We've got Steven. So the whole event is streaming to Destiny's channel. It's also going to be streaming to Scanner, SCNR TV, which is a big kind of independent journalism YouTube channel. And I'll also be streaming on minds.com. And so, yeah, we got Posobiec, Callan. Adam Kandub is a top free speech lawyer, very, very smart guy. So it'll be interesting to have his take on Twitter files debate and kind of talking about just kind of what's been going on with Twitter. Like they just open sourced a small part of their algorithm. And so I'm excited to kind of debate that. And, some Elon obviously has lots of haters and skeptics and all that. And getting some comedy in there with Callan will be great. And then we've got Jamie Kilstein doing some stand-up. We might get a couple other comics in there. Been having some conversations. And then we have music. We got Suzanne Santo, who, if anyone doesn't know, check out her appearances on Rogan. There's a great track she did with Gary Clark Jr. on there, and she's just a great kind of blues singer. Winston Marshall, former Mumford and Sons, who got kind of not kicked out of the band, but pressured into leaving because he posted Andy Ngo's book. Totally insane situation, but he's a great guitar player. He's going to be playing his new stuff. And then we got Ira Dean and Jeffrey Steele, who are like classic country singers. So it's going to be a party.
Yeah, I'm excited because like this, when we talk about things that make this event different. So bringing the audience on stage, I think would be an interesting experiment. And then also having the music, which Based Records is sponsoring, the cultural aspect, I think gets lost sometimes. And like bringing this there, it's going to change. It's like panels in the morning, and then we actually can like have music and a party. So that'll
have fun, have a party.
Exactly.
Bring in the artists. I love it.
And like the best music in the country is in Austin right now, which is crazy. you know. So yeah, I'm really excited about the Austin stuff. Matthew Azraeli heads up Based Records. So it's really exciting to have those guys a part of this effort. You know.
Yeah, I mean, just the idea that, you know, the music industry does not have, you know, there's no one that you can really point to. Honestly, Based is the only one that I've heard of that is actually taking like a pro freedom stance with their music. And just because,
so like Variety just came out. So Based Records is pro free speech, and they're also working with artists that have been canceled by the cancel mobs online. So like you know, someone like a Winston Marshall who was canceled or whatever, like their whole brand is about like bringing those people kind of back from being canceled. And it was interesting, like after the shooting in Nashville, because Nashville being like such a big music area, a bunch of country music artists came out in support of like banning guns, and there's this big thing in Variety. So it's interesting to kind of see Based. They'll obviously are going to be on the other side of that, but you don't have a lot of like, you know, cultural companies that are willing to be on the other side of that.
well, this is a good. So yeah, the sponsors of the show are Based Records, Public Square, and I have to mention this other company. They're called CT Light, and what I love about this company is that they have nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah,
it's literally this guy repairs and sells like MRI machines, and that's what this company does. But it's like he just wants to support this type of event and culture. So it's like the profound thing about that is that it just shows that like companies want to vote with their dollars as well. And like you don't have to be like related to media or tech or you know, anything directly related to kind of free speech to be involved with it. And that's what's like pretty powerful about Public Square, is that they've kind of capitalized on this idea that companies and individuals want to support others with aligned values and philosophy. So I just love how random it is that they wanted to sponsor us. And I'm just like, okay, let's talk about MRI machines a little bit. Like, what are you up to, man? Like, that's so random.
Yeah, it's so awesome. It's so awesome. Yeah, so I'm really excited. And, you know, outside of the people that are on the schedule, there's going to be a whole bunch of other people there. Like I heard a rumor Alex Stein's going to be there, and a bunch of other people like in the audience, which is going to be fun. It seems to be like kind of the cultural hub, huh? Keri, and Austin is like kind of that area.
Oh, well, yeah, there's so many podcasters who've been moving here. Obviously Rogan, Michael Malice, Blair White. That's just the first three that come to mind. There's
Chris Williamson. Have you met Chris before? He's local as well.
I have not. I don't know.
Yeah. Are you familiar with his YouTube?
No.
Oh, check it out. It's called Modern Wisdom. He's great. I mean, he interviews like Jordan Peterson, David Goggins, a lot of people. And he's kind of he's super fit. He's like a fitness expert. He's very culturally savvy and balanced. I'm really excited to meet him, actually. So cool. I actually have to hop, but I'll let you guys close it off. And thank you so much for coming on.
Cool. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, Bill. Yeah. Chris Williamson is excited. Yeah, he just did a really good interview with Douglas Murray. That was really, really good. Nice. Yeah, it's crazy. Like Austin seems to be kind of the center for podcasts that are moving there. It was interesting to me, like once Joe Rogan decided to move to Austin, you kind of see like a ton of comics leaving LA too.
Yes.
Which was interesting. Yeah, I heard like the music's really good. I was down there. It was like live music everywhere, kind of similar to Nashville, you know?
Yeah. Let me tell you though, this is the insider Texas perspective.
Okay.
Austin, I'm very happy that all these wrong thinkers are moving there, and I hope they can turn the tide in Austin and save it, because a lot of us who lived in Austin briefly have left for what I jokingly call real Texas, because it has been just completely deluged with woke and people moving in with woke ideology. So I hope they can stem the tide. But when you get outside of Austin, it's even better. That's what I have to say. Yeah. My husband and I were laughing because he listens to Rogan all the time, and he said, "Oh, I heard him saying something about, or him or Malice, somebody talking about how great Austin is," and I'm just thinking, really, like Get
Yeah.
outside of it into the rest of Texas, man, and your mind will really be blown. So
Yeah.
if you're coming to town, if you're watching this, I know some people who watch my podcast, you programmed, who are coming from out of state. If you're coming from out of state and you can afford to do so, stay a few extra days and visit some of the other small towns around Austin. You will have a ball. And if you
Yeah.
need recommendations, hit me up.
Fort Worth was pretty based. I know the Babylon Bee just did their event in Fort Worth at the Stockyards.
Oh, cool. I love the stockyards.
Yeah, yeah. Fort Worth was pretty cool. That's where the Blaze is out of too, right? The Blaze is out of Fort
Hmm.
Worth. There's a couple other things in Fort Worth. Yeah, no, that's exciting. But yeah, it's interesting kind of seeing like the LA scene, like from the comedy standpoint, kind of shift over to Austin.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And now Joe Rogan just opened the mothership out there, which would be cool, like to check out when we're in town. The mothership. I don't know if you've seen it. So it's his new club, and it's called the Mothership. And there's two rooms. One of the rooms is called the Big. What is it? Fat Man and Little Boy. Was it Big Boy? I forget the
Okay.
two atom bombs.
The
Right?
atom bombs. Yeah.
Yeah. So like one room's the one atom bomb, the other room's the other atom bomb. And the idea is that like what UFO people, like what the UFOologists think is like when the bombs dropped, that's when alien life forms became aware that we existed. That's the theory. Like,
Oh, I
yeah,
thought it was a reference to bombing on stage.
well, it could be that too. That's pretty funny, actually. That's pretty funny too. No, it's yeah, it's the bomb. When the bombs went off, that's when like a bunch of like increased sightings in UFOs apparently
Huh.
were recorded. So that's the idea. It's like we
Oh.
made enough noise for other life forms to realize, oh, what's going on there. No one can prove whether or not it's accurate, but that's the idea. It's like behind it, which is pretty cool, and it's like all alien themed. Yeah, it looks really really cool. I gotta get it. I think Tony's doing the show out of there. I think Joe just announced some shows today for the second, third, and fourth. Uh, but yeah, I guess Roseanne Barr's like there now. They have like a bunch of big names there, like Ron
Awesome.
White and yeah. So Keri, I wanted to talk to you about this. So I saw this. Speaking of comedy, I saw
Mhm.
this the piece that you did with Human Events about your old life in comedy.
Yes.
Yeah. So like it's changed, huh?
Oh, it's changed a lot. Yeah, I was sort of writing that because when I started working in comedy, I was managing comedians and then also producing concert specials and television shows. And I was thoroughly in the woke ideology, which you know about, but I was in it for 20 years. I was a true believer in social justice. And so a lot of the comics I chose to work with and to manage were also in that belief system. Some of them pushed it in their work more explicitly than others.
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, it wasn't uh, social justice wasn't like popular in entertainment. It wasn't what people were buying. It was sort of uh, it wasn't mainstream like it is now. And when I was working in it, it became mainstream. And one of the TV shows I executive produced with Chris Rock was called Totally Biased on FX. It starred one of my clients, W. Kamau Bell, and then several of my other clients wrote for it. And it was a thoroughly woke late night show.
Hmm.
And so I was kind of talking about now on the outside of it and all these years later, looking back at how it sort of exploded. It became mainstream, not just in our culture at large, but in entertainment. And a lot of late night shows, a lot of comedians who had never infused their work with social justice started doing so and getting shows. There was like the Moshe Kasher, I think it was called Problematic. That was woke. There, Jim Jeffries had a woke show, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's
all these. It was just crazy how they all started talking about this woke stuff, and now I think people are tired of it. So I hope at the end I want it to be a hopeful piece that you're starting to see more comedians pushing back against it because many of them started self-censoring and sort of preaching from the stage, and now there are enough big names like the three they pictured here, John Cleese, Ricky Gervais, and Dave Chappelle, who've pushed back on different parts of the ideology and continued to be funny, no holds barred, and now we're even seeing Chris Rock do so. So I think people are sick of it. They want to laugh. They want that freedom, that joy of like, actual unrestrained laughter again, where you're not putting the joke through some sort of filtering system in your head, like, "Can I laugh at this? Is it offensive to anyone or any group?" Like, people are tired of that. So,
Yeah. No, it's so true, and it's like the whole woke concept of not being offensive is a terrible combination for comedy because like comedy is all about figuring out where the line is and being offensive, you know.
yes.
Uh,
Eh,
it's
doing the taboo, so
yeah, it's crazy. Like I was watching like kind of like the 90s Saturday Night Live versus like what we see today on Saturday Night Live. And it's like such a huge difference, you know, like they were so much more willing to make fun of things back then. And you know, it was interesting. Like, I don't know if people notice. I was like a big SNL fan, and they made a very conscious decision. I don't know if people notice this, but like the majority of the people on staff were actually women, which was interesting. I don't know if you've seen that shift where it's like the cast of Saturday Night Live historically are pretty much, you know, a
a
lot
lot
of
of
men.
men.
Yeah, a lot of men, right? But it was like, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, they really made a conscious decision to change that. You know, like I think, you know, obviously Tina Fey and Polar did a great job. You know, like they really you know, they in their own right were very good at what they did. But it was interesting watching SNL kind of like do that. And then Leslie Jones was like the wokest
The worst.
woke, you
You know
know.
what you're making me think of? The church has done that too. They've also started putting a lot of women into roles that men traditionally held. Maybe women shouldn't be preachers or comedians. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
well,
I'm joking.
right.
I'm joking. But
Like again, if you do it because they're actually they're better at it, then I have no issues. But it was
exactly.
it's how some like Leslie Jones is a really good example of someone that, you know, made a career off of the social politics side,
Yeah.
really, you know, and I didn't find her like funny at all. I would watch that show and I'm like, where's the jokes, you know?
Well, they
But
started, I think, staffing people based on ideology and checking off these identity boxes. And I agree. Of course, women can be comedians. Of
yeah,
course, women should be preachers. I do have a caveat there about that, but that's for another show.
yeah,
I don't necessarily think women should be preachers, although I think they can be. But with comedians, it's you have to pick you have to pick people just like for any field or career
yeah,
based on the talent and the merit, and you wanna lead with funny first,
yeah,
and if you happen to have a cast that is very, diverse in terms of sex or race or sexuality, what have you, great, but that shouldn't be the defining reason why you're picking people, duh.
right.
It
Yeah, I mean, there's many great female comedians. I mean, Roseanne, we're just talking about her. She's one of them. Like, she was one of the biggest stars in the 90s, and she, you know, still very popular today, obviously, but she was good. She was big because she was hilarious, you know, and
hilarious, yeah.
she would touch on the topics that people were talking about and no one wanted to touch. So,
Speaking of SNL, Gilda Radner, one
yeah,
of my absolute favorite cast members ever on that show.
yeah, yeah, Gilda Radner. Yeah, there's yeah, like I said, even Tina and Amy were good for
Mhm.
like their time, you know, like in the Will Ferrell class. That was kind of like when Will came, you know, like came out. Tracy Morgan, you know, all those guys. My favorite is still obviously like Chris Farley and Adam Sandler and those guys. And I was watching their stuff, like Rob Schneider is actually very red pill. I don't know if
He's
you've been.
so yeah, he's based.
Yeah, he's super base, which is great to see, you know, because he's someone that could have just not been, you know.
Right. Like,
Uh,
him and, Norm Macdonald
yeah, Norm.
also was very based.
Yeah, Norm. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, Bill Clinton killed a guy. I still love that. Like, and the country just kind of watched like while he was just destroying that whole narrative. It was fantastic. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like what are some comedy movies or shows these days that you suggest? Like I don't it's a short list for me. Like I don't
Oh, I'm watching a lot of old stuff. Last night, we watched Smokey and the Bandit with Burt
right.
Reynolds. Speaking of Texas, great Texas and Georgia film. Just
Yeah.
super Sally Field, super silly and funny.
Yeah.
Uh along the same lines, few months ago, we watched Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Also, Burt Reynolds, Dolly Parton, very funny movie. I'm watching a lot of old stuff, Sean. I love in terms of comedians. I mean, she's my friend, but I think she's even if we weren't friends, she's so funny. Chrissy Mayer. I was on a stream with her the other night, and she's just so quick
Yeah,
and
Chrissy.
fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, she said she had this throwaway line, but it was so funny. It just off the cuff. She said babies because we were talking about, all these people now raising their kid they're without giving them a gender assignment, and they're calling them they them, and they call them babies instead of babies. She said babies is what you get when a trans person bites you. So stupid. So
yeah.
stupid.
Yeah, she like destroyed in New York at the last Minds Fest. She was roasting us. She was roasting everyone. It was
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, she's no holds bar. Yeah, you need more of that, right? Like
more of that. Yeah.
it's crazy. Like looking at Stewart's show. So I was looking at Jon Stewart's show. Oh my God. Like it is clear to me that that dude has not only read Robin DiAngelo, but has like memorized it. And if you see like his writing room now, it's absolutely insane woke writers, like outspoken woke.
That's what I was kinda talking about in this piece
Yeah,
that you have up on screen, because our writer's room was like that. It was just crazy. We should have documented it. Because I was woke, the host that was woke, many of the comedy writers were woke, and it was their first time writing for TV, and we were all bringing woke into it, and so the comedy room would devolve into arguments over, is it okay to make a fat joke about Chris Christie, or is that punching down? Is that fat phobia? And then you had old school people like Chris Rock was one of our other executive producers, and he was very much of the, make it funny first camp.
yeah,
And so there would be these big arguments about how the pieces, were they funny enough? Were they presenting the right message? That sort of thing. And now a
that's
lot of late night shows are doing that. They're all doing. A bunch of our writers went over to Stephen Colbert, made that show more woke. You
oh
know.
God, yeah, cool. And big pharma supporting. Yeah,
hmm
no, that yeah, no, that's a good point. Like what the goal should be, is it funny? But they're saying, is it offensive? Which is kind
Is
of the
it?
opposite. Yeah,
Yeah. Are we sending the right message? Is it ideologically correct?
right. That's wild. And that was like what Kumar Bell, that show was what, 2008?
Um, it was around. No,
2010.
it was a little later. It was like 2010, around
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah, I remember
And
watching it. And I was like, "Oh, Chris Rock's a part of the show." I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great." And then I was watching. I was like, "What the hell?"
I know we really wrestled it from his influence as much as we could to make it very woke. It was, yeah,
Yeah, for
in my
like
defense, I was like fully on board with. I just believed it was a
yeah.
good
Well,
belief
that was
system.
Kumar Bell's like whole brand, right? Because he went on to do CNN, right? And he was doing like
That was the last show I sold with him. Uh,
CNN show.
yeah, and that
Yeah.
one's still in the air. United Shades of America,
Hey,
and it
United
is
States of
thoroughly
America.
woke. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So there's a clear political agenda, which is fine. That's like his thing, whatever. It's just not funny. That's the problem, you know? Like, I guess maybe more credit to him for moving into that space instead of trying to call it comedy, because that show on FX was not comedy, you know?
He would still argue probably that the CNN show is comedy, that they have him on a comedy show. That I think what happens with people, I thought he was incredibly funny when I first met him and started working with him, and I still think he's funny. It's just the longer that you stay in it, the more rules, the more restriction, the more self-censorship you're doing, and the more preaching you're doing until you've really got a lot of distance between you and your sense of humor now.
Yeah,
So at the beginning, it wasn't that preachy. He had some really funny jokes about. He had a joke about how, he would have a whiteboard behind him, and he would say, "I'm gonna use math to show you that Black people created all forms of popular music." And then, people would yell out genres of music like rap, and he'd be like, "Black people," jazz, Black people. And then he would wait till somebody said country music, and he would say, "Nope, country music was also created by Black people." And he would go, "Country music equals the blues minus slavery." And that was really funny. I thought that was really funny. Like, And so I still think that's funny. Maybe it's just me, but that was before he got like now it's just preaching politics
Yeah.
and censoring oneself and new words that you can't say. I remember when he had an audience member confront him about using the F word for gay person and how
Mhm.
that's a slur and you shouldn't say that. And it really bothered him because he's sort of like, well, in the context of this joke, I'm clearly not using it in a homophobic way. And it doesn't matter. Like in the end, I think he probably ended up getting rid of that word because and that it's just these slow concessions that you make to the ideology. You're like, okay, I won't joke about that, or I won't use
Yeah.
that word.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw I don't know if you remember the movie Waiting with Ryan Reynolds and God, there's a bunch of people and there's like it's like one of those movies that has like all the actors who were around at that time. But yeah, they're dropping F bombs, left and right in the movie. And I saw I don't know if you remember Dude, Where's My Car?
Oh yeah, I don't think I ever saw it, but I remember that title.
Oh God, yeah, there's a scene like where it's Ashton Kutcher and there's this drag queen. It's like a drag performer or whatever, but like presenting as a woman, and then he finds out it's a man, and like Ashton Kutcher like freaks out and he's like screaming and he like runs out and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you can't do
Can't do
that.
that now.
Jesus Christ, that yeah. you get you get censored on every platform at this
Yeah.
maybe not Twitter, but yeah, it's crazy seeing how much it's changed just within a little bit of time, really. And yeah, I think stand-up's kind of like the last form though. Like you have to be funny. And it's always interesting seeing like what comedy is selling. I think Chrissy's doing a great job. I think there's like Ryan Long, like his comedy is really, really good.
Yeah.
Like poking fun at it. What the Babylon Bee's doing is really, really good.
Yes.
Their stuff is very good.
Again, to go back to what Bill was saying, how funny that the most popular satirical site today that I would say much funnier than The Onion. Onion used to be so funny.
I know.
Now the most popular satirical site is a Christian site. What
Yeah,
world are we living in? I'm not saying it shouldn't be Christian. I'm just saying this is not the 90s anymore. Like,
so funny. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. I was talking with Jack Posobiec about the plot line of what is it? Passion of the Christ
mhm.
2. That sounds interesting. So
There's a
I don't
Passion of
know.
the Christ too?
Yeah, so the idea with Passion of Christ 2, it's like, what's the sequel going to be about,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right? But no, they're actually like in the story of Jesus, like like after he died and he had to go into hell to release all the souls from hell, right? So that was the idea. So after he died, he had to go free all the people in hell that didn't have a chance to know his name, because there's a lot of people that came before Jesus. So when he died, he had to go and
Oh,
like
wow.
yeah. So that sounds really cool.
I've
That's
I've
yeah,
never even oh, it's coming out next year, I see. Oh,
yeah. That sounds
interesting.
That sounds crazy. Like that's a cool story.
Yeah, there's a
Uh,
lot of cool stories in the Bible. I kind of feel like, um,
whether you believe or not, like
yeah,
it's
whether you believe it or not, if you are a fan of Game of Thrones, you will
yeah,
enjoy maybe reading some of the biblical stories because it's got all kinds of effed up drama, like incest, murder, like intrigue, infidelity, all of it, betrayal.
yeah. No, it's great. It's great storytelling. I don't know if you saw it. I saw Tetris the movie yesterday. I don't know if it's like on Apple TV, but it's the story of like Tetris, which I I never knew the story of it. But it was really cool and they actually did it really good. There was like no political any crap in it, it was no woke stuff. It was like just a really, really good story. And it's like, yeah, see, like we can still make media that isn't bending because it's like any show I watch on Netflix now, like has some kind of woke
Message.
messaging in it. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
It really has like infected the culture one way or another. Like,
yeah.
um, yeah, and comedy, unfortunately, like what's the last funny movie you've seen?
Well, I told you some of the old ones I'm watching.
Yeah,
You mean new ones?
like new movie. Yeah, like it was like
Uh,
2016 it died.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hard pressed to think of one. I uh one of the last good movies I saw, it wasn't a comedy. It was a Parasite, which is a Korean film, I think. It won
Yeah.
Best Picture a few years ago. I saw that in the past couple years. That was
That was like
good.
a big COVID one, right? Like that got really big. Like,
Maybe during COVID. Yeah, it's a really dark, I would say maybe a thriller.
you
But
know, I was thinking about the Tiger King. Like, that's how
oh,
bad entertainment
that's
was.
so funny.
Isn't that hilarious? Like,
Yeah.
everyone loved the Tiger King. Like, we were all under that mass hypnosis. You know, like that was our entertainment. Everyone loved it.
I didn't watch it until later because I was thinking,
Right.
"Ah, this has gotta be stupid." And I was so hooked. It was hilarious and fascinating, and maybe we're living through a time right now where the truth, like one of those truth is stranger than fiction times and funnier than fiction, and so a lot of
Yeah.
people I've been watching some reality stuff I never thought I would watch, and I find it fascinating. Um, there was a show I was talking about on my podcast today called Marriage and versus Mortgage or something like that, and
Yeah.
it's where these couples save up a nest egg of $30,000 and then they come on the show and they choose over the course of the episode if they're gonna spend the 30,000 on a fancy wedding or on a down payment for a house.
Ah,
And you really get into the psychology of people and what they value, it's shocking because some of the people, the one couple I mentioned today, it's crazy. They've been living together for years. They have a couple of kids. They all live in a cramped 1 or 2-bedroom apartment, like, and they were talking about how much they need a house, and you think, "Oh, for sure, they're gonna put the money down for the
yeah.
house," and at the end, they spend it all on an expensive wedding. You're like, What?"
I know. That's kind
People
of funny. What network is that on? Is that like
I don't remember, uh, it's it's been a while since I've watched it. Sometime in the past couple of years I watched it. Let me see. It might have been Netflix.
okay,
Marriage or Mortgage is what it's called. And
gotcha.
yeah, so it's on Netflix. And the course of the episode, they have a wedding planner and a real estate agent, and so the couple, you see them, they spend a day with the wedding planner, and they see all the extravagant things they could have at their $30,000 wedding, and then they spend a different day with the real estate agent, and they look at all the potential homes they could buy, and
Mm,
then they make up their mind, and, what I've learned watching that show is you never know which way people are gonna go or what they're gonna
yeah.
value, and it's kinda crazy,
Well, that's like
but
one of the sneaky like genres that have kind of exploded. It's like those types of shows like that or the Property Brothers or Love It or Listed or whatever. Like like a ton of people I talk to that aren't like really in the political space. Like that's their go-to, you
oh,
know.
well, yeah, my husband and I have an old house in Texas that we are renovating while we live in it, and, it was built in 1914. It's no one lived in it the past 30 or 40 years, so we're really from the ground up having to redo the whole thing foundation up, and I maybe it's because of that, or maybe it's because of our age, but, we really enjoy any kind of renovation TV show.
Like, it's so and I know South Park, like, did that bit a year or 2 ago or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's such a huge, like, genre, it's so
Yeah.
weird.
You got the whole Magnolia Network now, like a whole
Yeah,
network.
yeah, it's crazy, also too, like, the Discovery Channel or was it no, yeah, Discovery Plus, like, those shows too, there's, like, a lot of reality, right? Like, the 400-pound life and stuff like that. Those are insane.
Those
Like,
are insane.
you have the trans or not the trans, the drag kid shows, and it's like that's wild. And they're like super popular. RuPaul's Drag Race, I think, is on there, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and they're like wildly popular. I don't know.
All of it, I think I view a lot of that reality as a window into our collective psychosis, sort of all these
Yeah,
different versions of it. So whether you're watching a show like Hoarders, which is
yeah,
about a kind of addiction and mental illness,
yeah,
or if you're watching, oh gosh, the dating shows, which are a
yeah.
window into extreme narcissism. I mean,
Mhm.
there's some crazy shows out there with crazy concepts, and you're like, who would even agree to do this? What person in the right mind thinks this is going to work out? Like, there's a show called Perfect Match, and they just take all these attractive single narcissists who have failed on other dating shows, and they put them in a tropical location in one house with lots of alcohol for a few weeks, and they're like, find your marriage partner. What?
Yeah.
This is not going to go well.
It's funny too, because like I remember when that genre, the reality show genre, first came out, it came under a lot of criticism where it's like it's fake, it's scripted, it's fake, and there's a lot of shows that are like, I forgot, I was watching some doc, and it was about like the kids that went around stealing a bunch of like jewelry from like Paris Hilton and a bunch of big name celebrities or whatever. And like they're part of like they were also part of like some reality show that they started, and they were like talking about how it was scripted and they have like a script and stuff. But the weird thing is, like with humans, like it doesn't matter. Like if you're in that scenario where a bunch of cameras are around you, you forget about it pretty quickly. And then you do, and then there are the people that do start acting crazy just for the attention. You know, like you forget the cameras are there and they'll do dumb shit. So yeah, it's like it's like the Kardashians, it's like their whole model. You know, just saying and doing and being ridiculous. And
I worked on a reality show with one of my old clients, comedian Margaret Cho. The whole thing was fake.
Yeah.
All of it was scripted. It was from the big picture premise to the small picture, each individual episode completely fake.
Scripted.
Yeah, even they moved her parents she doesn't live with her parents. They live in a different city. But for the show, they moved them in and pretend like they all live together. They also cast one of her friends who's a comedian as her assistant. That's not her assistant. They brought in a dream team, like a gay makeup artist and hairstylist and fashion guy, and said, this is who. Shouldn't even know some of them. They were hired for those roles. They weren't her friends. They weren't her makeup team. Like all of it was fake.
What they were presenting it? What show was this?
It was called The Cho Show. It was on VH1.
Oh, and they were that was like that whole craze back then. So they were presenting it kind of like
it was a reality show.
Yeah.
And it was so fake, and I felt sick to my stomach during that, because when we had pitched it, the whole process of pitching a TV show, of course, it's so rare that it'll actually make it to series anyway, and it's a couple of years down the road sometimes, the whole process. But sometimes if it does make it to series, it could be completely different than what you pitched. We had pitched an actual reality show with her and the burlesque comedy show she was doing at the time, with a whole cast of people who were in those live live burlesque shows. And by the time we got a deal and it made it to series, it was completely something different entirely. And I was like, oh, this isn't
that was like MTV got really big for that, right? It was like The Hills and God, the wait, I'm forgetting, but
where they just cast people. Yeah, it's so fake.
The OC.
The OC. There was a comedian, she's the one who was hired to play Margaret's assistant on that show. Who's a little person and comedian, and I was working with her. We were pitching some shows at the time too. We were pitching a real reality show, like a documentary show. And the networks we were going to would say stuff, the production company that we were working with at one point would go to these networks and they'd say, oh, well, they don't like your concept, but Animal Planet is looking for a little person show. Could you maybe get a dog and maybe open a dog bakery? What? Like change my whole career to get the TV show? Like that's how it is. And people do that because they'll say, well, this particular production company, Sean said, they were like, well, yeah, we just sold a little person show to Sci-Fi. And they were not ghost hunters, but they became ghost hunters for the show. It's like,
wow, that's crazy.
What?
So fake. Hollywood's so fake. Like everything about it's so fake.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I was thinking about, so like, then you have like the real reality shows. I think that's the addiction with TikTok. I truly think, great. You know, their algorithm is very addictive, and, you know, like they just launch you into it. And they you know, they do have tricks and stuff, but I think it boils down to people that just want to see sad reality. Like, like everyone, like the Britney Spears thing. Remember, like when she was going down in the media, like everyone loved that. They just loved
Yeah.
watching the whole thing. And, it's a weird thing we have.
Culture likes to build up people
Yeah.
and then tear them down.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that's why it's crazy watching the J.K. Rowling thing. So I actually sat through and I listened to that podcast. They did a good job. The person that did the podcast, they did a good job of like kind of telling the story and stuff. But yeah, it's wild. Like, and like you tell people like, hey, she said this, she didn't say this. They don't care. Like you can present them with evidence. They don't care. They just want to see the witch burn. You
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I kind of like push back on like all the time when I'm talking to people. Like we have to like find ways to lift people up rather than tear them down. Like the people that, and it doesn't matter what side you're on, like people are guilty of like trying to like tear people down or whatever. And it's like, um, yeah, I don't even want to talk about the other situation that we had going on with the event, but like
Okay.
anytime those media storms come in, they're always dangerous because you never know those like the cancel mobs.
Oh,
Because you never know where they're gonna go. Like, who are they gonna target? Like, should we be trying to cancel people? It's like a whole thing,
mhm.
and people do it for the clicks. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for Austin. I think it's gonna be fun. Who knows? Hopefully, let's cross our fingers that we get Joe Rogan there. I think that'll be great. Like,
Woohoo.
yeah, he's been talking about shows that do this, like have conversations, and that's why we picked the Vulcan in the beginning because it kind of makes sense. Like, I think people want to see more of like having discussions across the aisle, whatever whatever that means. Just like having discussions across, and that's why it's interesting. Like with Destiny, because you never know where he's going to come out, and
Yeah.
he has, he doesn't think the Twitter files were a big deal. Like
That's amazing to me.
yeah, yeah. But there are those people that they don't, and that's fine. That's their opinion. But like anytime, like I said, that's why the TikTok ban for me is, even though I hate TikTok and everything that it stands for, I think if we agree to just not use it versus, banning it, because the banning thing always gets anytime government gets involved with these tech companies, it's very,
Yeah.
very scary.
It is scary. I agree.
Even if it's on your quote unquote side,
Right.
But yeah, so that's going to be interesting.
I think
But
it's also there's something interesting and symbolic about you guys doing this in Austin and trying to, as you said, bring people together on both sides or across the aisle, because Austin has this history of Austin is the place where Willie Nelson is really credited with bringing together the hippies and the cowboys.
oh,
And there's something there. I got to think about that more, but it is a place where the slogan for Austin for so long has been keep Austin weird. It's a place where it used to be, before it got so thoroughly woke, a place where people can come from different backgrounds, diverse perspectives, different kinds of music, culture, what have you, and come together and without that animosity. And so there's something there, I think.
yeah, I was shocked that marijuana wasn't legal. It
Yeah.
just like a city that it would be. But yeah, that was a little shocking. I'm sure it will be at some point, huh? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, it's just like too much of a cultural hub. Yeah, no, I'm excited. So yeah, so what, you got anything exciting coming up that you want to talk about?
I just celebrated my year anniversary of Deprogram, the podcast, and
Congrats.
if people want to check it out, it's on YouTube at Deprogrammed. I had a ton of guests come by. It was so much fun. And what else? Oh, uh, coming up in May, my husband and I, speaking of Texas, we've been doing these house concerts. They're kind of like salon style shows. He's a musician. He brings in different friends for different styles of music for each show. We've done 3 so far, and the next one's gonna be at the end of May. And the ticket link is secret because we can only fit about 50 people in our house, and
Mhm.
also it's our house. So if you are interested and would like the ticket link for the next one, just email me at deprogrammedpod@gmail.com.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I saw you guys had that big stream. How long did you guys go for?
We went for almost 6 hours, the longest
Uh,
stream I've ever done on my channel.
oh
I
my god.
and I didn't because I just kind of sent the link out to people like, "Here's the anniversary stream,"
Yeah.
and StreamYard only allows 10 people on camera at a time, and so there were people who couldn't get in, and there were people I was juggling getting people on camera. If I ever do one of those again, we're gonna schedule people per hour so it's not so crazy, but it was a lot of fun, all different kinds
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah, that's it. We
Yeah.
did one post COVID. We did one. It was like 16 people. And that was like before StreamYard. That was like I think we were using Skype. Skype, it was horrible. But we brought like 16 different people on or whatever. We're trying to like raise money for this fund that was kind of paying people that were out of work because of COVID, when the government shut everyone's job down.
Yeah.
But it was fun. Yeah, but it's hard, right? Because you have to schedule people because
Otherwise,
otherwise,
they're all
yeah,
at once, yeah.
it's just, like popping in and out. And it's just like a live event too, where it's like if they don't know what time, then they just kind of like pop in whatever. Yeah, it's tough. Did StreamYard keep up? Did it show?
Yeah, but I was having trouble moving people in and out of backstage, and,
Yeah,
um, the other thing I should mention, you said, "What do I wanna promote?" I almost forgot. We are starting to do more, experiment with doing some comedy sketches on Deprogrammed, and we
nice.
just put out our first comedy video last month. It's called Woke Therapy. So, if you check it out, let me know what you think, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We're gonna do more of those, so
That's awesome. So you guys like scripted it? I gotta check that out.
Loosely the idea, but then all of it was ad-libbed. It was like, "This is your role, this is your role. Here are some
That's
things
awesome.
you might wanna say," and, my co-host on Wednesday nights, Mystery Chris, it was his concept, and then I'm in it playing the therapist, and my husband shot it and edited it, and my friend, Peter Feliciano, who's a comedian, he played the other character. It was fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, like what was interesting? I was trying to see like if it was gonna pick up or not, but like Twitter Spaces, like as far as doing those
Oh,
for
yeah.
people, I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, like,
I
I
don't
s-
really Well, I've never used one, like, created one myself, but I've been
yeah,
invited to speak on a couple. I will sometimes listen to them, like, put it on in the background while I'm cooking, but I don't think it's
yeah,
gonna pick up in terms of overtaking YouTube or, as a podcast platform where people go for conversations. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah. I think like Twitter still has the same issue that it's going to have, and Twitter Spaces is going to be a part of that. Like, if you expect people to go and spend time on that or create, content, scripted content or whatever for it, like you have to like monetize it somehow for the creators. Like I think that's their biggest issue. And what you can actually do on Minds now, which is great. So like you can go on Keri's Minds and send her a super mind. And we have the functionality in there where like if someone's like, hey, could you share this on Twitter? They can give you like, whatever what they're offering, and then you can like share like if they have like a brand advertisement or like an event or whatever the case is, you can just post it right from Minds to your Twitter, and then you make a little bit of money, they get their word out there. It's really smart. Like
Mhm.
Twitter has that issue where it's like, and there's so many people that like live on it, and you're getting nothing for,
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it's like this weird soft power you get to like, and you have to spend a ton of time working on it. And there is no real monetization, which is really interesting. Like YouTube, I think cornered that market early on. But yeah, and Rumble's doing a really good job. Like they actually are. They're actually picking up with like daily active users, which is good for their creators
Mhm.
too. But yeah, I think that's a big challenge like Twitter and Twitter Spaces is going to have. Like that was my argument against what was it, Clubhouse, where they took
Oh,
people.
yeah.
Like it was so dumb. It's like you have all these people now in the pandemic, fine, you're not working, everything's shut down. Yeah, people can spend 8 hours or whatever on the app or whatever it was. But like um the fact that like they weren't recorded, you weren't getting paid for doing it. They were all like private. The conversations go away. it was just like a weird model to me. Like,
Yeah, I
uh,
didn't really figure that one out before
yeah,
it was gone or not popular anymore.
yeah, like I think that's what like Twitter has to figure out. It's like how, and you know, Elon's promised this as far as like monetizing the creators, but like, how is that going to look? You
Yeah.
know, um, and there's a ton of creators that put amazing content on there, and a lot of breaking news is on there and stuff. But yeah, there is no real way for creators to actually make a living on it. Um, so yeah, we'll see. Hopefully that comes up. Monetization is like a big one for me. Like, hopefully that comes up on the panels. Like, you know, I think that's Facebook, any of them, like that they got to figure out how to pay, because if we stopped using those platforms, they wouldn't exist anymore.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I'm super pumped. Like, Austin's gonna be great. Tim's doing a show the night before too, so it's sold out.
Awesome.
Unfortunately. But yeah, so Tim's gonna have Tim Pool. He's gonna have Alex Jones, Blair White, Michael Malice, um, Luke Rudkowski, and someone else. And I hope I'm not forgetting someone. But yeah, someone else. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend.
Yeah, it is. I can't wait to see you guys.
Yeah, it's always so much fun. Well, Keri, I'll let you go. It's been an hour. I know we've been talking about random stuff. So
Oh, I had fun. That's what I like talking about. So
yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Check out Keri everywhere, Twitter, everywhere. Get on YouTube, follow her, give her a subscribe, all that fun stuff. And thanks for hanging out.
cool. Thank you, Sean. Thanks, guys.